I have some
Really
breaking
should get
news,
them.
Drac, which is that
What
I
is your
spent too
breaking
much
news?
money at record stores during Record Store Day. I spent way too much money
Arch
at
does
record
well.
stores on Record Store Day. And in one case, you're going to see why in this episode, maybe even in a couple cases. But at the same time, it's like I spent too much money and I still need that needle for my record player. So I could no longer afford to buy an Orthophone
Oh
Blue.
no.
So I had to
Oh
figure
no.
out what I wanted to do because I can't let it go for the next several episodes plus just my own personal listening without replacing my needle. Are you kidding me? It
Right.
needs to be replaced. I can hear it. So the clips in this episode are really going to be the last of the clips for my old needle. But since I'm going to be doing the show clearly, it only makes sense to do like before and after comparisons and such in the record basement, right? I mean, we have
Okay.
to
Yep.
because I mean, if we're why not do a before and after
Well,
on
yeah. I
needles?
mean, right.
But you also have to
Perfect
consider that
opportunity.
needles have break-in time. So generally, in my experience, in the range of 5 to 10 hours. So you really need to give a
Yeah.
record about 5-ish hours of breaking in before you try to do some kind of raw recording or really know exactly how it's going to sound. You know,
I
you need to
agree.
set
Yep.
it up right away, obviously, in terms of linear tracking and everything. But it takes a little while till you really figure it out. So I found a budget. It's not a total budget cartridge. It's actually, I believe, a quite nice cartridge, but it was less expensive, and it was at 22% off on Amazon. So that's why I ultimately picked up the Sumiko Pearl, and the
Okay.
Sumiko
I'm
Pearl is a
not
handmade.
familiar with that.
It's a handmade Japanese cartridge, and it's designed and distributed in the United States through a company out of the Twin Cities of Minnesota. And it is a very nice looking cartridge, is it not?
Yeah, it looks like it's really
It
nice.
comes in a really nice box that actually smells good. But the thing of I've actually had them on my radar for quite some time because they've been around for a long time. And they're known, if you go through enough audiophile forums and that, you'll see this name, not as an audiophile cartridge, but as a punches
Right.
above its weight budget cartridge. And in
Okay.
particular, it is a recommendation for people with vintage turntables or older records, according to some of the audiophile comments and such I saw online. And
Interesting.
it's been on my radar for more than a decade now because of that, but I've never really had a reason to jump on it. Well, it was at $100 instead of 140. If I had 140, I would have gone for the blue, right? But
Right.
$100, I'm going to give this a shot. But the reason it's supposed to be pretty good for older records and vintage turntables is it's supposed to be very good at dealing with noise floor. So if you have a noise floor problem, perhaps with your records or your record player setup or whatever, it's supposed to be pretty good at balancing that out, just due to the construction that they've had for many decades now. So, and I think it's somewhere in the same line as a lower end Grado or something like that. Not budget, not rock bottom. This is
Right.
basically a couple of steps above rock bottom. But it's still on
Kind of that
that
nice
lower
sweet
end,
spot,
yeah,
though.
that
Right.
lower
Yeah.
end range. To date, I've largely just gone with Audio Technica for my vinyl listening experience, really going all the way back to the 90s because they were dependable and cheap. And they always sound pretty
That's
good to my ears, especially if you go up a little bit, which is what I did, like say with the AT100 and 100Es and things like that. So,
that's what I used to
but
use before I switched to the Ortopon. So yeah.
but I'm excited to give this a shot. I'm excited to give this a shot, and we'll see a before and after on this, and get a chance to see how it sounds and feels and looks on the turntable, and it should be a pretty good experience. But that'll be coming up here, and then by the next episode, assuming this works out, it's what all the clips will be on. So
Okay.
I wanted to do one quick follow up with you, Drac, on one of the things you showed off in episode 6 here, the hummingbird anti-static device that
Oh,
you
yep.
showed off at the end of our
Yep.
last segment on unusual audio. How is that working out for you? Because I've been having some real static problems in my records, and something like that is looking pretty attractive.
It's so far I've noticed a huge difference. It works a lot better than the anti-stat gun. I think so. Maybe I should do a video on it and do like a before and after, like, and then compare the anti-stat to it. But I think it's working out pretty good. It to my ears, it does remove all of that static in most of the pops,
Yep.
even on records that I. The other night, I thought what I'm going to do is I'm going to try one. I'm not going to clean the record. I'm just going to take it out and while I looked at it to make sure it wasn't bad coming out of the sleeve, and then I'm like, I'm just going to hit it with that anti-stat hummingbird thing, and then see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have any pops or clicks or anything, and it sounded really good to me. So,
How much of a difference compared to just using the washer, the Humming Guru ultrasonic washer that you have? Do you do that and then notice an additional difference? Oh, hang on.
Yes, but I haven't actually. I should actually do just a straight use the Humming Guru cleaner, the ultrasonic cleaner, and then hit it with that anti-stat thing right after. Because usually what I do is I run my records through the Humming Guru, and then I'll just put them away. I usually don't play them directly after I get done cleaning them. Maybe I'll try that one time and see how much of a difference back to back makes.
Okay.
Because like I said, usually what I do is I clean them and then I just sleeve them and then I will play them later.
Okay.
Very, very, very rarely do I clean them and then play them right away.
If I can't afford a $600 ultrasonic cleaner, I could probably maybe do a $350. Maybe I can even get lucky and find something on eBay used or secondhand or something.
Every once in a while, those are on sale. Yeah.
Yeah, and do a really focus on the anti-stat and really make sure the anti-stat is where it needs to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially if, like with my Godzilla here, it's neat. So
I would be curious at that if you would hit it with that anti-stat thing and maybe do an ultrasonic clean on that, if that would help it too, because I wonder if there's stuff in the grooves of that. Maybe
I think so. I took the
Possibly.
Exorcist 3 to a local record store that used an ultrasonic cleaner, and it did improve the sound significantly. There's still a little bit here and there, particularly as you get towards the inner groove, but it.
Yeah, I mean, you're never going to get rid of it all.
Yeah, but it did get an improvement. But I don't have an ultrasonic, so I can't throw all my records through it. So
right.
So, Drac, as we start off episode 7, I want to ask you, what is the strangest guest star on a record in your collection? Because I've got a doozy.
Oh, I do too, actually. I think I have a good... Yours is a little better than mine. But...
mine was one of those random finds where I was like, I bought the record, and then I was like, wait a second, is that what? But let's start with yours.
Okay. Mine is Trent Reznor, 9 Inch Nails. Everybody knows who Trent is, right?
Yep.
You don't imagine him singing a type of ballad song, right? Other than, I guess you could say Hurt was a semi-ballad, but it was still a little harder. He guested on Tori Amos's Under the Pink on the song Pass the Mission.
Pass the mission behind the prison tower. Pass the mission. I once knew a hot girl. Pass the mission. The closing every hour. Pass the mission. I smell the roses. She said they all think they know him well.
Where he is singing background with Tori, and it's just very smooth and calm, and he's got like this deep little, and their voices mixed together, and I'm like, who would have thought? Who would have thought Trent Reznor with Tori Amos? But here we are.
These days, it makes a little more sense because he has since expanded to become, like, say, a soundtrack person and things like that.
But
I bought that record back in high school. And when I first put that on, I mean, it was Tori Amos, so you weren't expecting 9 Inch Nails. But then to hear Trent Reznor, and then you hear the song that he's singing, and you're like, that is not 9 Inch Nails. So that's about as far from 9 Inch Nails as it's going to get.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. Like, complete opposite. And then, so there you go. Yours, I gotta say.
So mine, I was at a
I have to
record
hand it to you.
fair. I was at one of those hotel room record fairs that will probably do a topic of its own someday. And just on a whim for, I don't know, it was maybe $8-10, I picked up an 80s album of Was Not Was, Born to Laugh at Tornadoes. Now, Was Not Was, of course, is known for Walk the Dinosaur, which is kind of an annoying song, in my opinion, but nonetheless a giganto hit. But this was indie label release from 1983, and I was like, early? That's really early Was Not Was. What does early Was Not Was sound like? And so I put it on. It was an $8 record, and I started hearing no one other than Ozzy Osbourne coming out of my stereo.
Can't tune the radio to heaven, you can't live 7 lives. You can't win money at the horses, you can't fight the armed forces. Shake your head, shake your head, shake your head. Let's take a beat. You can't sing underwater, you can't have the boss's daughter. Shake your head.
And I'm like, what in the... Because at first I was... Because
What
it
is
sound, it
happening
doesn't
right now?
sound like a metal song. It's not Was doing a metal song with the guest star of Ozzy. It's total pop dance music with Ozzy singing in a pop dance method. You could almost say he's rapping, but not quite. And
Insane.
it is so weird that I was just like, it wasn't until the chorus hit that I was like, oh my God, this is Ozzy Osbourne. And then I checked the record, and sure enough, guest vocals,
enough.
Ozzy Osbourne on the song Shake Your Head, Let's Go to Bed. And apparently they liked it so
Crazy.
much they did a second version, which seems to dominate the YouTube cliposphere, which features a video with Kim Basinger in it. And I didn't know that existed
Really?
either. But that's a very different version of the song than the version I have on my record, which is the one we're going to play here.
Wow. In the early 80s, I can only think of like a few reasons why a conglomeration like that would take place.
What you figure? I mean, he was at the height. I mean, was he at the height of his solo career in '83? He's got to have been up there.
Oh, easily,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
That
what's he
was-
doing guest starring
Oh,
on
yeah.
a Was Not Was album?
I would love to know the whole backstory on how that happened.
It says it was recorded at some studio in Detroit on top of it. So maybe it was like a tour thing. I mean, Was Not Was, Don Was or whatever, I think had his own production career outside
Yeah.
of the band.
Oh,
so
yeah.
maybe it had something to do with that or something.
Maybe.
I picked up a record for $10 that I picked up specifically because of this, and it is Boiling Point. This was a Japanese release of a direct-to-disc record. You may remember a few shows ago we talked about direct-to-disc, which was some kind of fad in the 70s, where instead of going and dubbing to a master tape, they went straight from a live studio recording onto the master cutting and then pressed the records directly from that. So, well, press the masters that they would then press the records directly from
Right.
that. And so it bypassed the whole tape mechanism and was supposed to provide superior audio. Where I encountered it was years later when they were doing Radio Shack upsell records, when they would try to sell you a realistic turntable and say, and for $20 you can have one of the most amazing records you've ever heard. And of course it's not. It sounds like a regular record for the most part. But this is like the Bible of direct-to-disc recording, because this is a Japanese musician who I don't know how to pronounce his name, but something like Shoji Yokouchi. And he has no less than an essay about all the fine details of recording
Good grief.
a direct-to-disc album, all of its pros and cons, why he chose it, and what it's all about. There's even diagrams of the recording studio process and all that in there. And he talks about how it's like the best method to record live music because it cuts out, the claim is, by bypassing master tape, the master vinyl has wider dynamic range than even recording studio master quality tape of its era. So in theory, they are claiming that the
Okay.
dynamic range of the master recording is more suited to audio files because it bypasses the mechanism of tape. And it's kind of funny though too, because there's also lots of audiophile bullshit in here. Like, for example, on the back it says, in the recording of a direct cut disc, no sound dynamics control equipment like a limiter is used. Therefore, compared to the case of conventional discs, a cartridge is required which can handle a much higher dynamic range. And they go on to say, basically, if your record starts skipping in that, it's probably your cartridge and you need to get a nicer cartridge. But that is not a thing. That is not
Nice.
actually a
Yeah.
thing, you know?
No.
So that does not exist. So, and then ultimately, there's the fate of direct disc recording is right away in one of the first lines here, which is recently a digital recording method called PCM, pulse code modulation, debuted. But he claims that the analog of this is better than the digital to PCM. But if you think about the fact, what
course.
happened, how did they bypass master tape? They went digital. And we've had digital masters really since the late 70s, early 80s. So a lot of
Right.
our classic rock albums were actually mastered in digital, if it was like 82 or something like that. But
Are you talking like digital audio tape, or are we
no,
talking-
digital recording. They actually had digital track masters, and I think it was in wide use by about 82, 83. So by that point, they were still doing some analog tape, but there was a lot of the big studio recordings were all digital at that point. And because they were in the era of CDs, and they wanted those DDD recordings and everything. So they wanted to make sure it was all digital throughout the process. It was the era of digital. And ultimately, the one drawback, which is a huge one that he talks about in this recording, is you have to play it live and you can't stop. Because the master is being
Oh,
recorded
yeah.
in real time. So there's no mixing, there's no like punch-ins, there's no, the whole side has to be recorded in one take live. And in
Yes, I
this
didn't think
recording,
about
they
that,
talk about
yeah.
having to use 17 different microphones and things like that to get it to go and everything. And it's just crazy. But it totally explains kind of both maybe why people were really attracted to it, but also why it died. Because it's nonsense, really, in an era of digital recording, if it even made a difference to begin with.
So how much better does that record sound?
It sounds really good. I will say that. And you'll hear the clip of this here. It's Japanese standards, kind of big band jazz is essentially
Okay.
what it is. But I'm going to
Okay.
pick the one song that the composer, the person who I just talked about, actually wrote. The rest of them were all covers.
I can't imagine recording an entire album in one take. I mean,
I
when I
know.
think about most modern rock bands and their ability to pull something like that off, I mean, they never get the record made.
Oh, no, you would never get it made.
And so I'm pretty sure, and I'm speculating, but I'm pretty sure by the time you get to like my 1981 Radio Shack record, they were probably just all digital files, and that's how they did it. Because you tend to find a lot of direct-to-disc compilations, and obviously you can't record a compilation in live time, so they're probably just
Right.
digital files that they just popped one after the other, and they still can claim to have not used master tape, but, you know,
Sure.
yeah. But
It would be interesting to see if there is some fidelity aspect behind that of like the low range and the high range, and whether or not the tape would not have that range available to it compared to digital.
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that is a thing, but it's probably falling outside of human hearing anyway, right?
You would
So I guess I
think.
don't know. How,
And you would think the requirements of the mixing and mastering people in real time, you'd have to be really good as well. Can you imagine trying to record like a punk band in real time and mix it correctly at the same time? It just
Yeah,
doesn't really work.
no.
So
Yeah, no, there's no way.
On the other hand, can you imagine how cool it would be if you were a punk band? You could just walk into a studio, live record, and have a master disc, a couple hours later. I mean, that's pretty hot too. So
Yeah. Well, in this day and age, we kind of can.
it's true. That's true. So episode 7 is going to get heavy. This is going to be our heaviest metal episode, where we're doing a top 666, because of course we are. Welcome to episode 7 of the Record Players Podcast on YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. My name is Mock. With me is my regular co-host, Drac.
Hey, now everybody.
And then also with me
Somewhere.
is my brother, Standpoint. How you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
You have started doing a radio show out of the Twin Cities of Minnesota on KFAI. And that's a well-known independent radio station out of the Twin Cities. People could find them on kfai.org. And you've got a show called Root of All Evil. You want to introduce your show a little bit? Tell me a bit about what's up.
Yeah, let me be clear. It's a show that I'm joining. I did not create it. The Root of All Evil is essentially, debatably, the longest-running metal show in existence.
87,
And
according to their website,
87?
as a matter of fact.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, 87, and it started with a gentleman named Earl Root. He owned a local record store. He also was a huge metalhead, loved to go to concerts in town, and he really wanted to bring a genre that just was completely unrepresented on the radio. Being on KFAI, they were able to run with looser standards than the standard radio stations would normally allow. And they would also play from 106.66 in the morning until 6 a.m. And he put a lot of work into all sorts of just amazing intros and outros on his shows. His segues, he would take awesome live calls on the air from people who were into the community. He used to do something called a gore check at 3:33 every morning, where he'd have people come in and do their best, like just call in and do their best guttural screaming, things like that. And it was just an amazing show. Well, Earl passed some time ago, unfortunately, and people have continued to keep the show running since his passing. It's gone through a whole handful of people. Right now, there's other individuals assisting with this show, and I had talked to some of them at some concerts, and I mentioned, hey, I would like to get in on this. This is something I've wanted to do forever. Is it something I could do? And they said to me, absolutely, we'll get back to you. Well, earlier, very, very end of last year, they reached out to me and said, hey, we really do want more help here. Why don't you come on in and we'll start getting you into this rotation? So, in time here, I'm going to be on every fifth week or so, and hosting the show myself. It's a live radio program still. We sit in the studio, we put on records, cassettes, digital, whatever, any format available basically, and just do the show from 1 to 6 in the morning. I'm actually going to be on it on the next show here coming up, which is at 1 a.m. on Sunday here tomorrow.
Yeah. And we should say personally that both you and I have a long history of listening to Root of All Evil throughout college in particular, but beyond that as well. And that anyone who's into metal in the Twin Cities is instantly going to know the Root of All Evil. I would be shocked if there was a person young or old into speed metal and thrash and death who is not aware of Root of All Evil in Minnesota. So, yeah, it's really nice too, because it's eclectic. You can play almost anything you want. It doesn't typecast itself. It likes to keep it going. Handful of weeks ago, we did a tribute to hair metal one night, where we just put on 5 hours of our favorite obscure hair metal we could find, and we had a great time with it. It was everywhere from death to hair metal. Right? Well, that's the thing. It's because you'll have KFAI is community-run radio, so you'll have genres all over the place throughout the day, not just, say, commercial music, but world music and music from all sorts of different cultures, and talk shows from different cultures and peoples and languages and everything like that. It's a really fantastic community radio station that's been around forever. But when 10666 starts and it goes from like say whatever it is, elevator music, jazz, you hear it to and it is a trip and it never gets old and it's just fantastic. So anyone can hear it online, kfai.org. And that's really the extent of it. But because honestly, standpoint, you probably have a much deeper knowledge of heavier metal than me. It was made perfect sense to get you on our show as we talk about our top 666 heavier metal albums in our collection. Why are we using that word heavier? Well, originally we were like top 6 speed metal, but what is speed metal versus thrash versus death versus doom versus every horrorcore
so many
versus everything else? I mean,
right.
The metal community is so good at subdefining itself that trying to do top 5 lists of every heaviest metal subgenre just seems like it would be kind of ridiculous. So instead, we're just going to lump it all together and basically this ain't Cinderella, this ain't Def Leppard, this isn't Bon Jovi, this isn't AC/DC, probably even, you know. And on top of that, this really isn't Iron Maiden either, because Iron Maiden is British new wave of heavy metal. So this is the heaviest stuff in our collection.
So yeah, it could be death, speed, thrash, black, anything that's not, like you said, not, we said not hair metal, not new wabum, not hard rock. So it's just anything other than that. So it's, the lists are going to be interesting.
I should just preface my top 6 by saying I love a lot of this stuff, but my collection is honestly a little on the weaker side. I have a number of hard hitters that are personal favorites of mine, which is why they're great for this list. But my collection is not very extensive. It's bigger on CD because I bought a lot of that stuff back in the day on CD. But in modern days, buying it on vinyl, there's just too much other music to get. And so I stand by my collection, but at the same time, it's not huge. And so that's why I'm going first with a record store day purchase that I saw on one of those Facebook, hey, here's our stuff for record store day. And I was like, well, this is the one that's getting me in line. An original 1987 copy of Slayer Show No Mercy. This is not an original release because it originally came out in, 83 or so, like 83? But this was a 1987 Metal Blade Records release with like even the chain and such on it. And I'll just tell you, I paid $60 for this record, which is not cheap. However, for a 1987 press in what I would describe as easily VG plus condition, that sounds this good with the record still sounding this new, are you kidding me? This record's only going to go up in price as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah. I thought it was a steal, but it's part of the reason I had to buy the other cartridge because I spent too much money on the Slayer record, which has side 6 and then side 6/6. And the clip we're going to play here is just the opening track to the album, Evil Has No Boundaries.
Stop us tonight. We take on the world with hatred and style. They have the reason we fight. Surviving the slaughters and killings we've lost. Then we return from the dead. Attacking once more now with twice as much strength. We conquer and move on ahead. Evil, my words defy. Evil, that's now the sky. Evil, will take your soul. Evil, my wrath of vow.
Good one to kick off this list.
Yeah. My number 6, gonna go a little newer. It's a band that is together no more, but 2 of these people from this band went on to form another band that I talk about a lot. The band I'm talking about is called I Wrestled a Bear Once. And this is their album called Hail Mary. If you look on this side, I know we did our best looking albums. This is a pretty sweet looking little press too.
That is a real good looking album.
But yes, this actually has Courtney LaPlante and
Okay.
Mike, who went on to form Spirit Box. And they actually got married after this. This band was around, and the original lead singer had a baby, so they needed a new lead singer, so they got Courtney LaPlante. And then they did 2 albums, and then the band kind of broke up. On Discogs, they're classified as math rock, whatever the heck that is.
Yeah.
And then metalcore. You'll understand why it's a metalcore with the clip that we're going to play. It's called Green Eyes. You can hear Courtney LaPlante at her screamy best. But yeah, I wrestled a bear once.
They missed an opportunity to be the first metalcore band with a baby singer.
They did. Yes, they did. And then I do have the original album with the original lead singer, and it sounds so much different. It is so crazy at how different their voices are. It's still very like metalcore and screamy, but Courtney LaPlante just adds so much to that band.
Great record there. I forgot about that band. That name was just so catchy to me.
They're so good. Yep, I wrestled a bear once.
Yeah, what a great name, but it's all one word. It's not.
And it's I was going to point that out too.
Mhm.
It's all one word.
Yep.
It's not I space wrestled. It's I wrestled a bear once. All together.
All right, so I wanted to preface with saying I have a fairly large metal collection, and so I kind of went and I did a little bit more zagging here on some of my records just to pick things for various reasons, okay? And I'm going to start with this band that I've just become obsessed with recently, and it's Bloodywood. This is the brand new release from Bloodywood right here. They are a band out of India, and they kind of consider themselves I guess you'd call it a bit of a mix between like metalcore and 90s throwback new metal and death metal of sorts. Now they have deep India tones in them, so they play actual traditional instruments while laying down some absolutely insane heavy riffs. And this band isn't exactly unknown, but I have been throwing out there over and over and over to people that this band is going to be huge. Now, I went to go check to see when they were playing a concert, and last time they were in the Twin Cities, they played at a rather small venue. It was known as a Turf Club. They are coming this summer, and they are opening for Baby Metal at the Armory. So
Nice.
They are already significantly getting larger in size. But you need to check out this album and the album before it, which I unfortunately don't have on vinyl, and really get a sample of who this band is, because they are going to blow your mind.
Hell yeah, I am so down for listening to that. I've never heard of that before.
I've never heard of them either, actually.
That sounds fantastic, though. That sounds right up
What-
my alley.
Everything
You were gonna
said,
love it.
exactly.
They
Everything
mix
you
both
said, I'm like,
English.
yes, yes, yes.
I believe they mix their combination. Their lyrics, I believe, are a combination of American and Punjabi. So they also speak in multiple languages on the album, and it's really cool.
Standard metal riffs is exactly what my number 5 is. It is the default. It's kind of a boring pick, but at the same time, it's got to go on this list for me, and that is Metallica Ride the Lightning. This is a modern press. This is one of those you can get at Walmart for like $25 these days. And I just picked it up because I didn't have it in my collection. I love Fade to Black, but For Whom the Bell Tolls, Creeping Death, and everything else. And this is from Metallica's own record plant. You know, they're pressing their own records these days. And the quality's, I think it sounds really good. I saw some mixed opinions online about it, but to me, this sounds a heck of a lot better than the old CD I had. So, works for me.
Someone help me, oh please God help me. They're trying to take it all away. I don't want to die.
I mean, what do you say about an album that is like so big that it almost is boring to bring it out? But at the same time, are you really not going to put like Fight Fire with Fire? Are you kidding me? Fade to Black, Trapped Under Ice? I mean, come on. It's just really good. I think this is the album that created the Metallica stomp, isn't it? Because it was not fully there on Kill 'Em All. It was really that dun 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 dun, you know, that stomp that you hear that is the Metallica sound. Really comes from got it started in this one.
My number 5 kind of goes along with yours. It's not Metallica though, but it's another one of those that this really deserves to be on the list. It's Anthrax and Among the Living. That hasn't been said millions of times before. It's just straight up thrashy Anthrax being Anthrax. It's got Among the Living, Caught in a Mosh, I Am the Law, Skeleton in the Closet, Indians. I mean, it's just...
I was always partial to State of Euphoria myself.
That almost went on my list.
I know you have it. You have it. I've seen it on your catalog, so
I do.
We could do a trade someday, maybe for that one. So yeah,
I listened to them back to back, and I gave the little small edge to Among the Living. But
so why do you like Among the Living the best of all the Anthrax?
I think it's more, to me, it's more classic Anthrax. I think on State of Euphoria, they kind of got commercial a little more. They weren't quite as, like hardcore and I mean, it's still Anthrax, but it's like they got a little more. I think they were trying to get a little more. They were like, okay, we want to try to get a hit here. We want to get radio airplay. We want to get on MTV with this. So
that's probably true.
I think State of Euphoria has got less not like the fills on the drums and the guitar and stuff felt really more compressed and intentional, there was less just kind of live feel to it too that Among the Living has.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, they're
Well-
both solid, good albums, though. But
Well, gosh darn it, I'm gonna have to pull this record out. This was not the one I was gonna put out now, but I had to match you on that one. That's Among the Living. Now I wanted to bring this
There you
one
go.
up because of an interesting story, and you can kind of see right here. It's got a Loves sticker for $6.99 on it. When I bought this, and this is not the first time this has happened to me, I decided to just randomly buy a record I wanted off of Amazon. And when I bought it, the advertisement was a repress, with like 180 gram vinyl, whatever happened, whoever happened to be repressing it, right? And I paid, I don't know, like 20, 25 bucks for it or something like that. But what they sent me was not a repress. It was an original. And I can tell, obviously, because they have a $6.99 price tag on it, right?
Yeah.
right.
So this was not a repress. You can tell it's kind of used. It's, it's definitely not a brand new record, right? This is probably an original pressing of some kind out there. And so I wanted to bring this one up because I think that it's really awesome when you get random things like this from Amazon, who just, for whatever reason, just sends it to you like that. Now, I actually received a copy of New Jersey that way. And I was supposed to get a repress of Bon Jovi, New Jersey, and they wound up sending me an original that's in pretty good shape. But I don't know if you ever price shop the cost of buying New Jersey on vinyl, but it's not small.
It's
And-
it's getting up there for sure. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's crazy, though.
Huh. So I happen to know standpoint, you, at least when we were younger, were a huge Anthrax fan. How do you feel about Anthrax today?
Well, I saw them play I try to come to watch them play whenever they're in town. They always put on a really good show to this day. Their newer albums, I like them, but they don't really have some of that oomph that the older albums have. But they still put on a great show, and Joey Belladonna, at his age, can still sing incredible in a live presence, and that's awesome. Plus Scotty in it, come on, it's like watching Guitar God right there,
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So,
Side note about Joey Belladonna. I saw a TikTok the other night of him singing the national anthem.
yes,
And I was blown away. That dude can sing. Like, he can sing.
oh
and
yeah,
I'm like, I never knew he actually had the voice to sing, because all I've ever heard him is Anthrax and kind of the Anthrax style, and I was blown away. I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing.
Huh.
yeah. Fun fact: he also has like a side project where he is in a Journey cover band.
No way. I'll have
Yes.
to look that up.
Yep. Yeah, he does it, and there've been talks and rumors here and there about him filling in on actual Journey shows here and there, but I don't think it's actually happened yet.
Oh, that's
But
amazing.
he can absolutely sing Journey
Yeah.
just
Oh, yeah.
as well as anyone can.
He could.
Well, what do you know? My number 4 is probably not my 4th favorite heavier metal album, but it is my 4th favorite heavy metal record. This is another recent purchase, and this is King Diamond, The Graveyard. And in particular, the album is great. It's what you expect from King Diamond by the time 1996 hit, which is really horror novellas brought to large concept albums with theatrical stage shows. But you're basically seeing a little horror novel set in like Victorian times and stuff play out. And that's the case of this one, which involves a person wrongly sent to an insane asylum who murders to get his way out, finds himself in a graveyard, somehow figures out that if you chop someone's head off in a graveyard, their souls get trapped in their skulls, and then he starts collecting skulls in this graveyard where he's handling while working to get revenge from a mayor. But the reason I like this is, and the reason this is number 4, is this may be the best vinyl record I have ever purchased. the quality and attention to detail on this release is so good that if every release was 3/4 this good, I would never complain about a single record release. It comes in a really nice, high quality gatefold print, 180-gram vinyl, half speed remastered by Andy LaRocque, who is the guitar player, if I recall, correct? I think.
do believe so, yes.
Yeah, and it's on spread across 2 discs because it was a longer CD at 45 RPM because they could. So it is truly an audiophile quality pressing of this King Diamond album. And I happen to have on an old Metal Blade Records CD, the original CD master of this. And when I heard this vinyl compared to that, I was so blown away that not only did it completely change my mind about this album, but it has me saying, well, I think I'm going to buy another King Diamond from the same series because my local record store also has the Puppet Master. And I was like, well, if I can get this quality on that album too, I think I'm going to do it. I like King Diamond just fine. I think he's real cool and interesting and unique, but I'm not a giant King Diamond fan. But that, if you talk about records being able to present the music in the best possible way, this is the case study of that. And it even comes with a giganto full-out poster of the album cover that you could frame. I mean, it's just got everything. So, oh, and on top of that, it was sealed. I bought it brand new. The 2 records were sandwiched between the layers of the gatefold so that if it was shipped, there would be no punch through. That's even the level of attention to detail they brought to this stuff.
What record label is that on?
Metal Blade.
Oh, okay.
Yep, Metal Blade. Also, I will say, speaking of our coolest looking records, and I bought this after we did that, gotta say,
ooh, that is pretty.
This vinyl looks real good, spinning on the
I don't
turntable.
have any of the newer King Diamond stuff. Like, I think the latest one I have is probably Abigail, maybe. I have like two or three King Diamond, and then of course I have Merciful Fate. King Diamond is kind of one of those acquired tastes. His voice gets a little grating on me after a while. Like, it's hard for me to sit through a whole Merciful Fate / King Diamond album because
I have a bunch of King Diamond
voice
on CD, and I've got like Abigail, Them, The Conspiracy, 1 or 2 others actually that I've picked up over the years on CD. But this one I like in particular because by this point, not only were the band's members masters of their instruments, but they were really in their theatrical production era. So when you see the kind of highs and lows that King Diamond gets, he's doing it in service to a character in a way that really feels like maybe you're actually listening to a stage play going on.
right.
And so it doesn't quite grate maybe in the same way that some of the earlier recordings. And then plus just the quality of the studio recording by 1996 was just way, way better. This one has, I don't think he's ever really had a hit exactly, but this has Black Hill Sanitarium on it, which is a bit of a hit of his. So
I think probably his biggest hit was No Presents for Christmas.
yeah.
Exactly. I love that song. My number 4, another one of the just classic bands, Megadeth, and I went with the Rust in Peace album. I knew for sure I wanted to put Megadeth on, and I was torn between this one and Peace Cells. I went with this one just because I love Hangar 18 and I love Holy Wars, The Punishment Due. That is my favorite Megadeth song, so I think that's why I put this on the list versus Peace Cells. but this is a newer repress. And that Megadeth stuff is starting to get repressed too. I've noticed.
Starting.
They're
I would emphasize starting. I have yet to be able to find any good Megadeth on a repress that doesn't have like
yeah.
a $75 price tag on it.
That's the problem with the Megadeth stuff. It's so expensive, but yeah.
Well, that album though, I would argue that was their most technical album to date. I mean, the guitar work in there with Marty Friedman.
Marty Friedman's amazing guitar. He's like got to be right up there in the top 5 guitarists of all time.
Like, I think between Dave and Marty, and if I'm not mistaken, Dave Lombardo was on drums on that one too, if I'm not mistaken. And it's absolutely, I mean, musically, it's just at the top of their game, right? They absolutely just rocked it on that album.
Do you want to tell them, Standpoint, or should I, that we got to see this tour in concert?
Yes,
no.
we did.
Yeah. I hate you both.
Unfortunately, they played with Testament and Judas Priest at the same show.
Yeah.
For the Souls of Black tour.
Yep.
And
That's some good stuff.
Yeah.
I love that album clearly myself.
It's so good.
Yeah, I've seen Megadeth a few times. I saw them only a handful of years ago. They played at a relatively smaller venue in town known as the Myth, and they absolutely killed it that night too. They were just super technical on their guitars. Well, I'm going to dig this guy out of my stack. I'm not necessarily doing these in order of favorites, but I'm just going to do it for various reasons. So, all right. So earlier, you busted out of Metallica. I got to throw Metallica in the hat. I'm going to go with And Justice for All.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a really nice one of those new represses you were talking about. Heavy vinyl, double record set. You know, there's 2 records in here. This album just defines angry to me, right? So when you look at Blackened, Eye of the Beholder, Shortest Straw, Harvester of Sorrow, I mean, those songs
Dyer's Eve is another good song out there. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, they wrote these really long songs, and they absolutely were just at their height of just angry at the time.
My life's all for planting seeds of hate. I've loved turned to hate, dropped far beyond my fate. I feel you take this life that I forsake. Been cheated of my youth, you turn the lights into ruin.
There's a infinite discussion about the mixing quality on that one and whether or not Jason Newsted's represented on the album or not.
He's
vinyl.
Not.
No, it's not. But he's not. But
they buried the bass.
It's a crime, honestly. It's a crime.
Yeah, it is.
It really is.
Yeah.
But the entire guitar is so bassy in it too. Plus, there's all sorts of bass drum. There's so much bass that's present. The only one that's lacking is one that really should have been there. But he does have some parts in there. And so, I got to throw that one out in the thrash, because that was I would argue the height of their meanness before they realized they were just too mean and had to tone it down.
Well, I love that album too. I don't have it on vinyl, but I wish I did. I may have to pick that one up at some point. It is like the proggiest they ever got too, and I'm into my prog, so.
My joke with that album is it's a shame they never made an album after that.
You stole my... I was going to say that too. The good thing about Metallica is it was their last album, yeah. Because to be honest, I never liked the... I mean, anyone who disagrees with me, hey, I'm the one who's wrong here. That's fine.
Right.
I never liked a single thing they did after that album. And that includes, for me personally, the Black Album. It's not that it's bad, it's just that it's not...
Black Album was okay, but...
Yeah.
Just,
yeah.
No.
The 598 EP.
I thought that came out before And Justice, though.
No,
Did
it was
after, I think.
I think it was after.
I kind of like Garage Days Revisited. It had some cool covers on
after, that. But maybe it was. I don't know. I'll have to look that up now. But yeah. That's.
I just wanted to mention, I actually scored a copy of their newest album on vinyl. I got it like a week after it came out for $15. So I snagged it because it was M72, and they were selling. They had 2 of them on the shelf. They had a brand new copy for 45 and one that had been opened for 15. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm snagging it for 15 bucks, you know.
Yeah.
It's okay. I mean, they kind of have on that one. There's kind of some little hints of like, okay, there's a little bit of old Metallica in here. It's kind of there, but then
The mix is good. They actually
Yeah.
it sounds good.
It is.
So,
And there's certainly still high quality band members. I've seen some like TikToks recently of James Hetfield singing in that. And, they're certainly all very talented musicians. It's just I lost interest in what they were doing really after And Justice for All, in part because And Justice for All is the pinnacle and the peak, and they never topped it, in my opinion.
Exactly.
So
no.
you brought out
100%.
Rust in Peace. I'm going to put as my number 3 here my Megadeth, which I do not have on vinyl. For me, my favorite Megadeth album is So Far So Good So What, and I don't have it on vinyl because I can't afford it. But what I do have is the single from the Metal Years Decline of Western Civilization Part 2 single of In My Darkest Hour.
In a perfect world, but I gotta die first. Please, God, send me on my way. Time has a way of taking time. Loneliness is not only built by fools. Alone, I call it easy. Yearning to be held by you alone. So long I'm lost, consumed by pain. Pain. Won't you hold me again? You just laughed. Bitch. Oh, life is work built on the past. Time's come, we know. Things shall pass. It's good to pass away.
I like Megadeth, So Far So Good So What, because it's really, in some ways musically, it's very of its era, but thematically, it's very self-absorbed, very woe is me, very emo in some ways. Dave Mustaine was really at the peak of his just self-loathing and all that comes through on the record in a way that I think a lot of people who are struggling can identify with. And I think the quality of the music and the sounds and the songwriting is extremely, extremely moving to me. You were talking about Metallica and Justice for All. The one thing you can say it's angry, you can say it's technical, you can say all sorts of things. Can you say that it's heartfelt? Not really. And you usually can't say that about too much in the way of speed metal in terms of portraying emotion. That is more kind of internal and about relationships and love and hate and things like that. And Dave Mustaine tends to cover that more than most and best, in my opinion, on So Far So Good So What. I would actually put a content warning on In My Darkest Hour as well, which is that if you are, there are some people with mental health struggles who have considered, say, suicide and that who probably should not be listening to that song.
That's very true.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's one of the best songs that I've ever liked from Megadeth, and I've been into it for decades, and it's my number 3.
Back in the day, I wore a videotape out watching that video over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
That is a good pick. My number 3, sticking with Metallica, but I'm going with Master of Puppets.
Fear of living on, and getting restless now. Mutiny in the air, got some death to do. Mirror stands back high.
favorite Metallica album, hands down. Welcome Home, Sanitarium, best Metallica song they've ever done, in my opinion. Love that song. Of course, Master of Puppets is this downright classic. This is just such a good album. But
It
yeah, this
is.
is,
I mean, can you get more speed metal than Master of Puppets?
Oh no, that's no.
Yeah.
I mean, this was like, I know you had said that and Justice was their pinnacle. This pretty close to being their pinnacle too. I think they kind of rode this right into and Justice. They took what they did from this and just went right into and Justice. But yeah, Master of Puppets, just classic album, classic Metallica.
I have a picture disc version of that record, and I don't think it's super rare or anything, but I was going to include it, but then I already had a Metallica, so I didn't include that one.
Yeah. I only have
But it's
Ride the
really
Lightning.
cool.
But here's the good news about our top 666 years. We covered all the basics because we talked about Kill 'Em
We did,
All
yep.
a show or two ago here. So
We
at
did,
this
yep.
point, we've covered the entire Metallica catalog of note. And actually, didn't we even do our worst heavy metal? Didn't we start?
Yeah,
with
yeah, we did.
Metallica?
Saint Anger. I bought it.
I bought it on CD back when it came out.
I know,
I gave it a lot of tries.
I have the vinyl.
I love Master of Puppets too, and I love the sound of the album of Master of Puppets more than I love the sound of of And Justice for All. I just feel like And Justice for All is even like another 10% more intense than Master of Puppets. So,
Yeah.
in
I
my
can
personal
see that.
feelings on it.
No, I see that, but
Someday
I
when
mean-
you're bored, do a face-off between Battery and Blackened. 2 intro tracks. Which
Ooh,
one's better for you?
Oof.
that's a great idea, actually.
Oof, that is a good idea.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a. Ooh, we might have to do that.
Pointed this to you guys earlier. This one's a little controversial in that it's not exactly speed metal, but I wanted to include it because of its super rarity to myself. Okay,
Mhm.
so I'm putting out the original New York City hardcore comp on here. Okay, this is from a record label known as Revelation Records. They reissued this, I don't know, maybe 12 years ago or so, and they came out with a handful of limited copies on yellow vinyl. It is extremely heavy, and it's a compilation of hardcore bands from the late 80s in the scene at the time in New York, which absolutely influenced a million people. Scott Ian from Anthrax was obsessed with these bands. Dan Lilker from Nuclear Assault was obsessed with these bands. They were showing up at these shows while in their bands just to be able to see the scene at the time, right? And then of course we've got our friends in SOD and MOD who kind of spawned out from this scene as well, right? But here you've got bands like Bold, Nausea, Warzone, Gorilla Biscuits, Youth of Today, Sick of It All, Super Touch, all sorts of just absolute killer music on this. And this is one of the rawest recordings ever. It's like they hit record on a boombox, and when they were recording the songs for this album, right? And it shows, but it's absolutely unique in that fact that it just has this feel and this vibe that you just don't get out of most productions. You could tell somebody made it on cassette and now it's found its way to vinyl.
Right.
Awesome. That is, talk about that band list though. Holy moly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Like that's almost a who's who right there of the hardcore scene at that time too.
So my number 2 is another of a personal classic, and I think a late 80s classic, and that is Overkill, Under the Influence. Overkill, I think, tops my number one album as my number one band. I've got a different one person for my number one album, but my number one band of heaviest is Overkill. And the reason for me is because they're fun.
All those streets and broken glass, running down the sewer with the rest of the trash. Never to be seen again, never making a home in a garbage can. Here's a little story that I live to tell. Hello from the gutter, hello from all new hell. Wasted days, wasted nights, hypnotized by the city lights. Another king and another queen, living in the shadows where they can't be seen. Remember all the world lies at your feet, and the beating of was rotten, rotten in the heat. Hello from the gutter.
They're just more fun than a lot of other thrashy speed metal bands, and they've
Yeah.
got the great songwriting. And as people who have listened to the show know, I care about kind of vocal delivery and things like that. And does anybody beat the singer of Overkill for basically being the Muppet version of speed metal? I mean, really? It's great. I absolutely love his vocals, and he's incredible, even to this day, from what I hear as well. So, and Under the Influence is definitely not their best sounding album, but it's the one that is the rawest and most intense as well. I didn't want to include two Overkill records in my top 5, but I would also point out that I went back and forth between Years of Decay and Under the Influence, and ultimately settled on Under the Influence just because I think Shred is really fun, and the bass line and end of the line. The end of the line, there's this kind of scale bass work that goes on a couple of times in that song that just floors me every time I hear it.
Yeah. I think Years of Decay was a little more produced, and Under the Influence had a little bit more raw sound, which really worked well for them. I was absolutely blessed where I got to see Overkill play at the Varsity Theater in Minneapolis, which is a really small old movie theater, right? I don't know what the capacity is, but it's probably just a few thousand people or something. And they put on one of the better live shows I've ever seen, and that was not that long ago. So they still got it, and they still come out like fire and absolutely rock that stage.
Yeah.
I, for my number 2, went with a newer band, went metalcore again. We talked about it before. I went with Spirit Box and their technically debut album, Eternal Blue. Blue switch press is what they call it. And then it also has a die cut. See if I can, without breaking the vinyl there, it's got a die cut cover to where the.
Ooh. Well, they're doing the Spirit Box is caring about their production, their album art and such. All their albums look amazing.
Yeah, they do. So this is just like, I talked about Spirit Box before on the show a couple times. Just Courtney LaPlante's vocals, just the way she can scream and then go straight into singing just amazes me every time. Like, how the girl does it is beyond me.
I had never heard Spirit Box until this show, was it a couple episodes ago when you showed off that one track, and it just blew my mind. That whole week I had that song on repeat because it just rocks so hard. Good. I hadn't heard something that rocked that hard in years.
And they're very technical, like the guitar playing and drumming. They're a very technical playing band too. and then you have just Courtly the plant on top of it. It's just like a complete full package, and they're just they're great. So yeah, check it out. Eternal Blue by Spirit Box.
Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely check that one. You know, I'm kind of curious. I don't want to sidetrack us too much, but I love the fact that vinyl coming out these days are colorful. They got all sorts of splash and unique designs. I'm curious why we never used to do that. Why did everything come out as black vinyl? And two, does it affect the quality of the record?
It does.
There is a big debate on that. Yes, there are people that will swear colored pressings do not sound as good as a black pressing.
Go ahead.
I can't tell the difference, but there's people that swear up and down.
One of the reasons Under the Influence is number 2 instead of number 1 is because of this colored vinyl and the noise floor and static and stuff that I hear every time I put this thing on.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
The only time I've ever said do not buy, if you ever see a pressing of anything that is on a glow in the dark vinyl, which they do quite a bit. A couple years ago, I think it was on Record Store Day, actually, there was a Rolling Stones greatest hits that came out and was on a glow in the dark vinyl. It sounds absolutely horrible. And I chalk that up to it's because of the way the vinyl is and it glows. It's got some kind of something on it to make it glow. Like noise floor is horrible on it, and it's so staticky.
I recently had a used copy of Tools Lateralis show up at my local record store, but it was the sort of laser etched picture disc version of it.
Oh, yep.
And you could hear a little stuff every time it went over the figure on that album, and I was like, well, I guess I'm not buying that one. So
yeah.
I think why they do it, though, I mean, it took a while to figure out, is because back in the day, they were pressing so many records that it was all black because they came in one color black. But then as the number of pressings got into under 5,000 per, it opened up the ability to bring in kind of new mixes and things like that. And then because of marketing, don't forget marketing, all these limited edition versions. There are even people who buy more than one version of the same album, aren't there, Drac?
Yeah. No. I mean, no. Who would do that? Who would buy the same album 4 times? That's crazy.
How many copies of Pearl Jam 10 do you have? Well, wait a second. Don't answer that. We'll get into that. We'll get into that one later.
Exactly.
All right. So I'm going to bring my number 2 out. This one. Okay. So there is a certain band. I bet you're about to know who I'm going to say, Jerry. There's a certain band out of Minneapolis that epitomized thrash back in the late 80s. And that band was Power Mad. And they really only put out 3 albums. And 2 of them came out, and then their newest one came out decades later as like a final farewell. So I am showing off this one.
Ooh.
This is the newest Power Mad, Infinity. Came out, I think it came out around 2015, 2016. But they went all in. At this point, the guitar player Todd Haug was solid in the city as being the head brewer of Surly Brewing Company, right? So him and, if I'm not mistaken, the bass player of this band basically founded Surly and kind of put craft beer on the map to some extent in this area, right? And Surly's gotten absolutely huge now. They're a combination food hall, concert venue, beer hall, da. Well, he was about to leave Surly back around this time, and they decided to do a one-off, another set of album and gig in the Twin Cities, which I also got to see at the Triple Rock, which is a famous little tiny place in West Bank, Minneapolis, and it's since not closed down shortly after I saw this concert. But the cool thing about it is the production on this. So let's see if I can get this to go open here. They got it all on the inside here, and then everything folds out.
Wow.
Ooh.
That's amazing looking. Oh my God.
Right? And then it comes out with this absolutely insane picture,
No.
right? That is just cool
Oh
stuff,
my
right?
gosh.
That's awesome.
Right,
Holy
and then-
cow.
To top it off, the regular sleeve fits inside there then, and then they came out with a really nice quality image. It's kind of like looks gray here, but it's kind of a bluish gray.
Yeah.
And it's a nice 180 gram vinyl, and it absolutely rocks. It's a modern album. It's got a couple of songs that are just complete earworms on there, and likely this is the last album they're ever going to have as a band. But the production of this and the way that they did that inner sleeve,
Oh,
right? This is just so cool that I
that's
had no choice
incredible.
but to pick
Yeah.
that up.
Oh,
We
yeah.
recently did a thing about our best looking jackets, and that could have easily made the list. That's
Oh,
right up
heck
there.
yeah, I could have.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
And top it off, I also got I bought it from the band themselves, and so they gave me guitar picks, stickers, and all sorts of cool stuff.
Nice.
Awesome.
Bought it direct from Todd Houck.
All right, my number one, Drac, and standpoint is one we just talked about in the last episode, but let's get into it. Testament, Practice What You Preach, my favorite thrash album, and as we just talked at the start of last week's the last episode here, the sound of this pressing is so phenomenal that I just cannot stop listening to it, and I am so happy to get the best sounding version of this amazing album ever. This just came out in the past month and a half or so, and it's so gosh darn good. It's just the greatest thing ever. But I've loved this album since it came out, picked it up on CD, and I just think that Testament's great, and this album is the best Testament.
Bold is the one who dares to say what he feels. Relocation made to know what he heals. The beating hearts and the empty minds hiding what they fear. Blind is the one
I have a copy of that record too. I
too.
definitely bought it as soon as it came out and you pointed it out to me. I went and bought it too.
Yeah.
The ballad, just
Yeah.
that song's one of my favorites. I just can't get enough of that one.
And the title track, the opening of that for Practice What You Preach just lets you know what you're in for, which is just angry, but also kind of, it's a pretty political album, actually. I mean, it's a fairly political album when you actually read the lyrics and hear about it, because there's a lot of worries about like government takeovers and deforestation and environmental concerns and people just living with integrity and things like that. The lyrics are actually pretty intense, and the delivery is just, as incredible as ever. And they only got more technical from here, but this was really, and maybe in some ways a little bit like Rust in Peace, where this is the album where they went from a pretty great sounding band to a highly technically great sounding band.
They recently
I only have that
did.
on CD. I don't have the vinyl of that. I'm gonna pick that up on vinyl.
That band recently did a meet and greet at a local brewery in Minneapolis before their last concert, and I went down there and I got a copy of Souls of Black signed by all the band members at that.
Oh
And-
wow!
Now, in fact, I've even got a photo where was it Chuck Billy? Billy
Mhm.
Chuck.
Yeah,
He was
Chuck
like
Billy,
giving me the
yeah.
devil sign in my photo while he
Oh,
was
nice.
giving me with his arm around me, and then the guitar player was also sitting right next to me, smiling too. So it was an absolute awesome photo of that out of that show. Well, not show, but meet and greet. And so it was really cool. Had a beer or two with them, just kind of talked, and then they went on their way. So
That's so good. I love Souls of Black as well. I don't have that on vinyl, but I do have Practice What You Preach. And for me personally, I just like Practice What You Preach a little more because I just like the songs on it a little more. But Souls of Black is an equal album, really, to it. So
my number one was always my number one. My other albums on my list, I switched in and out. I made like 3 lists and I kept changing them. This one I knew was going to be number one. It's Slayer and Seasons in the Abyss.
There's flesh, a bloody tomb, a decoration splatter right in the room. An execution, a stated ritual, that intervals of my residual. Close your eyes, look deep in your soul, step outside yourself and let your mind go. Frozen eyes stare deep in your mind as you die. Close your eyes and forget your name, step outside yourself and let your thoughts stray as you go insane, go insane.
It's Slayer, Dead Skin Mask, Seasons of the Abyss, War Ensemble.
opening with War Ensemble is just,
Like-
I mean, oh my gosh.
That's all you need to know. Like this is if somebody says, what is this thrash music? Play them this. Hands down, it's like that's thrash. That's Slayer.
absolutely. And plus that album, absolutely maddened a million parents back in the day. Just the whole PMRC. It was the height of the PMRC and the whole like Satan era, and your kids turning to Satan because of the music they like, and and then here comes Slayer with, oh well, you want some Satan here, don't you? Here you go.
Exactly.
Dead Skin Mask is still a creepy song. It's got to be one of the genuinely kind of scariest songs of all time, maybe, if you were putting together a top 10. It's got to be
I would
up there.
probably say it's probably 2 or 3, yeah, easily.
And I love the
Such-
sound of
yeah.
that album. If I could get it
It
on
is.
vinyl, it would have made this top 5, but I only have it on CD because I can't find an original or official version of this album.
Hands down, my favorite Slayer album too. Like, it's like not even close. I mean, I love all of the Slayer stuff, but Seasons, hands down.
If I had unlimited
Yeah, really.
vinyl, I might have to weigh Rain and Blood or Seasons in the Abyss. I might have to weigh Rain
It's a
and Blood.
tough call. I don't know which one I would vote on that because they're both
Yeah.
really
I-
good.
Really, really like Rain and Blood, but I just love Seasons in the Abyss.
Season of the
Good.
Abyss has a little bit more of an eclectic sound. Like there's a little bit, they branch a little bit in that one. It's not
Yeah.
all just in your face thrash. Like Dead Skin Mask has kind of got a slower groove in it, right? And
Yeah, it's a little bit of groove, kind of like a groove metal, and like Mock said, like it's kind of got like a horror type metal vibe too. But yeah,
When you do a search
So-
for that album on the internet, people keep saying that it's the slow Slayer album. And I'm like, that album
Yeah.
isn't slow. Are you kidding me? If that album is slow,
No. I mean, okay, sure. I guess for Slayer, maybe. But
I would argue that one of my favorite Slayer albums is Undisputed Attitude. And that is the one where they did nothing but punk band covers,
Yep.
except Slayer. And that one absolutely rips too. And it's a completely different way. It's kind of like you almost have to think of it like a side project in a way from what Slayer kind of is, but absolutely rocks. And so I can't get enough of that one too. Okay, so this is a fun one. I'm not going to say they're my favorite music, but this is one of my favorite records because of the story behind it. This would be a copy of Abbott, the newest Abbott album, which is this like Danish, Swedish black metal band that kind of is like King Diamond in a way. the story behind it comes right in here, where they say it's silver vinyl, limited pressing to 1,750 copies worldwide. I went and saw Abbott with one of my friends at a local venue. Oh, it's really nice and fancy too, but on the inside, it's really, really shiny.
It is super shiny. Is it almost like
covers-
plastic covered or something, or what?
Yeah, it's almost like like waterproof plastic coated.
Oh, that's crazy.
But this guy is an absolute character. This is what he goes up on stage looking like, right? So it's a really, really fun show. So after the show, people are starting to clear out. It's silver record, by the way. And I saw the singer standing there in full stage gear behind his merch stand, right? And I went up to him and I said, well, what have you got that's super rare? And he told me in this really thick, kind of Danish English tone that he had this record that was hand signed by himself and another guy in the band, and that it contained actual silver. It contained actual silver in the record. And I'm like, wait, you're telling me that there's actually silver in the record? And he was like, yes, there is. And he charged a pretty penny for this one. It is a really high quality album, but because it's got his signature and because it has real silver in it, he charged a lot of money for it. But I got to buy it directly from the guy who I just watched up on stage. He was out there in full makeup looking just like this, selling me this copy of this record. And whether or not this record actually contains silver,
Right.
I'm going to argue it probably doesn't, but
How
the
would you
singer may have
know?
allegedly told me that there's actual silver in this record. So
How would you? Wow.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure how I'm not sure how you could verify that.
exactly. But hey, you know, for those, he was in some other big bands back in the day too. If you ever get a chance to see Abbott play, absolutely worth it. Top-notch musicianship, top-notch stage show, full-on throwback into that Danish black metal look and scene. Just really worth the show time. It was a great show.
Well, gosh, that's our top 666 metal. I think we covered that pretty good. There's a lot of stuff that didn't make it in, of course.
Oh yeah.
Things
Like-
that, you
like
know,
I said,
also rans and things that didn't quite make the cut. I don't have too many of those, though, because I just don't have... I have on CD, there would be a whole bunch I could add. You know, Metal Church, Blessing in Disguise would probably make this list if it would fit.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
I
well,
can't
we
get there.
have to talk about albums we own.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. What is the most heavy metal thing that has ever been in a movie? Take a minute to think about that a second, and I'll talk. This can be as open-ended an answer as fits the question, what is the most heavy metal thing that has ever been in a movie? I am going to pick the guitar-playing guy strapped to the vehicle in the movie Mad Max.
That is pretty dang.
That's
metal.
an example of what I can think
yeah.
of for this list.
Yeah.
Anyone got an also?
I do, and mine is kind of specific. There was a version of the original Nosferatu silent movie that came out with Typo Negative doing the soundtrack for it. So they took all of the original soundtrack out, and it's all Typo Negative stuff. When if you've seen the original silent Nosferatu, when the original death ship comes into the harbor, having Typo Negative play when that ship is coming into the harbor and it's foggy and it's kind of creepy, and then you see Count Orlok rising up out of the thing, that's pretty dang metal too.
That's a good one. Can you think of one standpoint?
Yeah, I've got a few. You know, when I think of heavy metal, the ultimate heavy metal, I mean, well, one could argue the movie Heavy Metal,
Hmm.
but the Pick of Destiny, the Satan guitar off scene in the Pick of Destiny.
This world will be mine, and you're first in line. You brought me the pick, and now you shall both die.
Wait, you motherfucker. We challenge you to a rocker. Give us one chance to rock your socks off.
Nope.
That's pretty metal.
Oh, that is a good pick. That is an excellent pick.
That's a good pick for sure.
Yeah. I almost considered the drum cymbal death in Studio 666 as pretty metal as well. Yeah.
Yeah. That's, well, there's so many great mid 80s heavy metal movies though too that I mean you could have a whole topic on that because I mean there's just infinite awesomely bad 80s metal movies.
There definitely are.
Iconic
We'll
stuff.
probably talk about them here on the show later on.
Yeah, that would make a fun topic because there are a ton.
Hey, you know, I guess if you want to talk music, I would argue that the Shocker soundtrack may be one of the best metal records ever produced off of a movie.
That's tricky. I don't know if I'm going to agree with that, but I'm not sure what I would replace it with. Decline of Western Civilization Phase 2 might be it.
Are we talking metal soundtracks? Or just
Off of a
any genre
movie,
music?
yeah.
Okay, movie.
But that was a documentary about metal, so maybe that doesn't count.
Well, that would be a debatable topic, yeah, if that would actually count. But Shocker was pretty good. Actually, if you want to talk about soundtracks for movies, and I know we do have this coming up at some point. We have talked about we did soundtracks. Last Action Hero has an amazing soundtrack. Movie sucks royally, but that soundtrack is pretty amazing. I was saying with the amount of bands that are on there, it's got like Alice in Chains, it's got AC/DC, it's got Queensryche, it's got Tesla. I can't think off the top of my head who else is on that soundtrack, but it's really good.
I was going to say Dario Argento's Phenomena, although it's half Goblin, but the other half is Motorhead, Iron Maiden, I think Dawkins on there, and a few others as well.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, you might have me beat there.
Yeah. No, that's a solid pick, though. That's certainly Shocker is certainly good. Yeah.
Trick or Treat's another one that's got a really good metal soundtrack too.
I've been watching that movie
Fastway.
because it's on
Yeah.
all the streaming services for free. I've seen it like 2 times in the past 6
I know.
months, and it's so bad.
I
It's
love
so
that
good.
movie so much.
Oh, it's so
is.
terrible.
Rock and roll will never die. At least not this Halloween.
You've heard of raising spirits from the dead by incantations, right?
Yes.
I did that by playing the record backwards.
You're kidding.
Sammy Kerr. He's a rock and roll nightmare.
It's so horrible, but it's so good.
Yeah, well, hey, thank you for having me on. Let me know if you ever want me on again. I'd be happy to help out anytime you want.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. Hey, we are going to be doing either punk and hardcore separately, or punk and hardcore together.
Cool. Well, I've got a million records of that. So.
So it's episode 7 of the Record Players Podcast. What's new? So what's new?
It finally arrived.
What has caught you eye?
It finally arrived. We've talked about this for a couple of shows now, so let's get this out of the way and perhaps move on. However, it is also, take a look at this thing. The Godzilla soundtrack happened to arrive for me. Yep, on Record Store Day. It is a premium looking cover, just like they advertised, both front and back. Looks absolutely lovely. Look at that gatefold here.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and this is fairly minor, but it's got a frameable style still. And then the record itself is one heck of a looking record. Look at that thing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's sort of a... they came in two different versions, and honestly, I've seen on Facebook and such the darker black-blue version, which also maybe looks better than this. However, not better than this one, because
That's the
my
only one that I've
splatter
seen.
happens to look like a nuclear fallout symbol, which is basically unintended. And most other people's pressings don't seem to look like this. And if there's anything more perfect for the Godzilla soundtrack, I don't know what it is. And then it's got the
Okay,
flip
that's
side here,
awesome.
which, you know, looks a little more standard and has the Godzilla.
That still looks
track.
cool itself, though.
Yeah, and it's a great looking record. It's the 70th anniversary pressing by Waxwork Records and Toho. Waxwork directly with Toho to produce and manufacture and distribute
Okay.
the 70th anniversary soundtrack of Godzilla, which is, of course, the most famous monster movie of all time that changed everything for not just Japanese cinema and American cinema, but cinema in general, and also is about so much more as well, and is a very classic soundtrack of kind of classic monster movie type stuff. It's a killer release. It's pretty hard to buy. Some of the limited editions sold out.
Waxworks, yeah, sells out so quick.
My only bummer on it, and I'm sorry to say this, is that this is another example of me receiving a Waxwork Records release that is maybe a little noisier than I am comfortable with. It sounds good, but... And I think the but is either it's too late in the stamping process, so it ended up picking up a little noise floor and other kind of static in that, or there's just something else going on with the vinyl kind of compounds being used, because it's a very noisy sounding record, really. It's not like unlistenable, but it's also not great. It's not good, maybe even. So, but the sound of the music on the pressing is excellent. If it sounded, if that noise floor and crap was released, it would be great. So,
is it just in the quiet parts that noise and the noise you notice it?
Yeah, you definitely notice it more in the quiet parts, which is what happens with a lot of vinyl too.
Right.
Sometimes
that's normal. Yeah,
but it also is just louder in terms of the crackling and stuff than a whole bunch of other records that I've purchased brand new recently. So.
So my what's new is one of them that's been on my want list for a while, and I'm guarantee you most people probably never even heard of this, and people are going to be like, "What is this?" It's a band called Why Can't Tori Read? This is Tori Amos before she went solo, basically. This was her very first album she ever released. I just happened to run into this at a record store in their new what they just got in used section. And they had this, and it was fairly reasonably priced, because this is one I've been looking at forever. And it's usually so expensive to buy. And obviously it came from a radio station because they wrote the radio station name on it. It's on the back as well. But I almost didn't buy it for that. But just at the price I got this at.
Yeah.
and like how good this is, and the vinyl's like, if it's been played, you can't convince me this has ever been played. I mean, it looks like a brand new vinyl. But as I said, this is Tori Amos. This is her first release she ever had. It's also a gold stamp promo as well.
It sounds like it looks, to be clear. It doesn't.
It does.
If you're used to Tori Amos 90s and onward,
right,
and you hear this is almost more like maybe almost like mid 80s, late 80s Sheena Easton kind of stuff.
Yep.
Sort of.
It's kind of very poppy, very dancey, very electronic-y in some parts. Yeah.
Did she write the songs? I don't know enough about Tori Amos, so I'm sorry to know, but is this her songs, her music? Or did she happen to find herself in a studio environment with a producer or something? Like, how does it exist? Why does it exist?
When she went in to get her record contract, she wanted to do what she was doing in the 90s. She wanted to do the singer-songwriter thing. And they told her, there's no way that's going to sell. We're never going to sell that. That was like 70s. Nobody cares about singer-songwriters. So they're like, we're going to put together a group for you, and this is what we're going to do, and you'll sell. You'll be big. Well, this didn't go anywhere. It just died. It died a very slow death. It came out in, I want to say, 86, 85. Let's see when it came out. But yeah, like I said, like you said, it's not Tori Amos. So if you're expecting Under the Pink and Little Earthquakes, this is not what you are going to.
On the other hand, her music has always been so sincere and everything that to have just the fun dance version of Tori Amos is also not a bad thing. But it's so weird. Does she actually write the songs? Is she listed as the songwriter?
She wrote all of the songs.
Wow. And
the music.
I couldn't believe it when I heard the clip of this album. I was like, I cannot believe that's Tori Amos.
Yep. Words and music by Tori Amos. Words and music by Tori Amos. She wrote all of it.
I didn't hate it, but then I like disco. So
it's like I said, it's very weird. And it's just one I've always wanted, just because I'm a big Tori Amos fan. And I'm like, I want to have this in my collection, but I've never been able to like really afford it, because it's like, if you look on Discogs, prices are like all over the place for this. Like, every once in a while you can get it at a decent price. This was like, I want to say $35 I got this for.
Okay.
So I'm like, at that price, heck yeah. And like I said, it's brand new, it looks like. Was a gold stamp promo, so it was a radio station record, but it doesn't look like they actually ever played it, because it's VG plus easily, almost mint.
Wow. That's fantastic. What a wild record for this show. I love it. One final bonus for what's new, and that is, this is just too funny not to share. I guess about a week and a half ago today, I went outside of my house to get the mail, and what was sitting on the front of my lawn but a CD? Have you ever had that happen, to where just you see a CD on the road, or you're in a parking lot and you see a CD or whatever? But this apparently Van Halen Balance CD from 1995, for whatever reason, happened to be sitting on my front lawn, maybe about 5 feet away from my mailbox. And I was like, well, I have to pick this up and figure it out. I have a feeling it's not for me, because I'm not the world's biggest Van Halen fan. And I don't know what they were up to in 1995, but I suspect it wasn't their peak.
Very poppy, very keyboard heavy. Yeah. That was the Sammy Hagar era Van Halen, so it's like very synth, very pop. Yeah.
Do you think someone was just driving down the road, this was in there, and they were like, oh my god, I hate this so gosh darn F this album.
I kind of hope
Chuck.
So.
Or how did it end up in my front lawn?
I kind of hope that's the story. That people are just like, nope, I'm done with this.
We'd like to end the Record Players podcast with something that's about music, but not about records. And the one I've picked for today's show is one that you don't have any examples of, as I understand, Jack.
I do not.
But I
Yep.
do.
Nope.
And that is laser discs. If you are sorting around enough record bins, going to enough flea markets and that, you will encounter laser discs within record collections or as part of what's on available at the store. And you may wonder, what in the ever-living heck am I looking at here? Because it most certainly isn't a record that goes into a groove. It's like a giganto CD or something. And
Right.
what this really is, the short version, is an early digital but still analog video medium that came out in the late 1970s, got big in the 80s among home video theater enthusiasts, and then died in the era of DVD, but also is a key predecessor of DVD. And so if you know DVDs, they really, Laserdisc walked so DVDs could run in some ways. But the idea was, this is ones and zeros, but it's read with a laser light, almost like an analog process. As it goes, the disc spins around and it reads through it, and it's almost like a weird half analog thing because it sends it out as a radio frequency and such as well. In most laserdisc players, as I understand it. I am not a laserdisc expert, but I do have a laserdisc player, and really I would just say if you do come across them, they also have their collectors markets and collectors scenes as well.
They do,
So
yep.
if you see particularly good or rare, and it'll be a lot of the same kind of stuff you'll see in rare movies, like horror movies, foreign movies, maybe obscure martial arts movies, things like that. A lot of that same kind of stuff, big, and then also big 80s movies and stuff. But you'll see a lot of music that you can't really get elsewhere because it was only released on Laserdisc or home video VHS tape, perhaps, at the time.
I had no idea there was even music on Laserdisc.
This one is a concert video performance from Carnegie Hall. It's a collaboration backed by this person named U.B. Blake. U.B. Blake, at the time of this recording, was 98 years old and opened the evening with a rendition of his own 1892 composition, The Charleston Rag. So from a historical perspective alone, being able to see the person who wrote that song back in 1892 perform it is alone the price of admission. But then it also has Herbie Hancock, George Duke, Stanley Clark, Hubert Laws, Ron Carter, Bobby Hutcherson, Kenny Barron, and the list goes on. So it's like an amazing jazz laserdisc that you can play. If you do want to get into things like that, you can store them the same as records. These do not yet have the storage taken care of them, but I have them here in part because I'm going to do that. But the same rice paper inners and closed or open outers will work just fine for laserdiscs as well. But they tend to be a little
12-inch then.
Yeah, and they tend to be a little more sensitive to humidity and heat than records are, even, so it doesn't hurt to put them in a good seal. Another one along the same lines, and I'm just going to point out a couple others here to wrap up the show, I got for its cultural significance, this is a video laserdisc of the Mahler Symphony No. 2, conducted by Leonard Bernstein. And he is a very famous, conductor as well. And so having something like that on video is really good. But it's not all just your kind of nerdy jazz stuff. I also have Madonna, Truth or Dare, the original laserdisc of that. And this is really maybe the definitive rock star Madonna documentary in some ways. And it's quite the watch if you try to watch it in 2025 here. Lots
They
of
even
concerts.
did.
Now it is video, and these would have also been released most likely on VHS tape. They tend to be full
Right.
frame, but sometimes they're also widescreen. And they've got great sound quality. They really do sound good. So
Yeah, that's I know. If I am remembering correctly, that was the big thing. It was marketed to like an audio file because they did like the surround sound and all of that. And at the time, that if you wanted the movie theater experience in your home, Laserdisc was the way to do it, just because of the audio and the picture quality was better than VHS.
yeah, it has
mean,
its
that's
enthusiasts today. There are
debatable.
people today who insist that it's the way to watch movies, even in 2025. I happen to perhaps disagree with them. I think in an era of
Yeah.
4K Blu-ray, it's clearly superior. But
Right.
but nonetheless, it is it's a trip watching these old Laserdiscs.
I bet.
I want to give one final warning though, before any people who might be watching this who are younger or whatever and think it might be interesting to get into. One thing you need to know, so don't pay too much for your Laserdiscs, is because they suffer from something called bit rot. DVDs have it, CDs in theory have it, although not too often, thankfully, on the part of CDs, but it can happen. But it is rank throughout the Laserdisc world that videos you try to play simply won't play anymore because of the chemicals and the stuff used to make the Laserdisc has just essentially broken down. Whether it's the glues that hold the various layers together or even in some cases the inner materials itself have degraded.
There's I think it's laserdiscdatabase.com, I think, has a list, and they'll tell you like which disc suffer from that. And I guess there's some that just like they like don't buy them at all because they just will not play.
If you're looking for a Laserdisc player, my suggestion is to get whatever one you happen to find that works, because that alone is a pretty good find these days.
I've never been able to find one that actually worked. I've always looked for one because it's just something I thought, I'd kind of like, that's like a weird niche thing I'd like to collect, but I've never been able to find a working player.
In particular, though, my actual recommendation is to find a Pioneer. And find the nicest one you can, but a Pioneer is a particularly good Laserdisc brand who has a long history of units that have held up over the years and continue to function with good lasers and things like that. And they were one of the initial groups funding the creation of Laserdisc, so they tended to be, in the same way Sony was with the Walkman, the CD portable, they tended to have high quality stuff. I have a Pioneer myself, and the other thing you need to know is, just like a record, sometimes you have to flip it. Unless you have a player like mine, which actually has two lasers in it that'll do the work itself.
Oh,
there are double-sided Laserdisc players, but a lot of them are just like a giganto tray, just like a CD's coming out, and you're flipping that thing over and, pushing it back in, so.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. That's episode 7. The Record Players Podcast. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening. If you're in the car, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook or TikTok, thank you so much. Any final thoughts, Jack?
Buy Laserdisc, I guess.
No. See, okay, well, maybe not, though. Let me end that then. I don't actually recommend people get into Laserdisc too much. Although if it sounds great to you, great. But I have a small pool, and I used to have a lot more, and I've sold most of it because I saw the disc going bad, and I was like,
I actually have some DVDs that are like that are no good anymore because they have.
You think a crate of records is heavy? Try a crate of Laserdisc. It's a monster. It'll take up space. You don't need it.
It's funny. So, it's funny that you talked about Laserdisc though, because I was just in Half Price Books last week. And they apparently somebody either offloaded all their collection or somebody passed on or something, because they had like probably 40 Laserdisc in there. And I'm like, I have never seen these ever in the wild. And all of a sudden I'm seeing like 40, and there was like some decent movies. I almost bought a couple just to have, because they had like the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that would just be cool to have as like a horror collector thing.
I have a few like that. I have the Road Warrior I have the
Okay.
original release of The Road Warrior from Warner Video, and I've got a couple others as well that I particularly like. Tron. I have Tron as well. And then I've got Star Wars and the trilogy. So